Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Maximum Octane. And joining me today is my co-host and colleague, Jason Patel. And our special guest today is Chris Darmody, and he is from Graham Auto Repair in Washington. And so we're excited. We have a great episode and things to speak with you about today. And so we were just chatting a little bit beforehand of how long Troy, the owner of Graham Auto Repair, has been with ATI for, I think, going on 14 years, maybe. So we've seen a lot of change, a lot of growth. Troy's done some episodes, amazing story of his growth and journey and, Graham Auto Repair just in general. But yes, I used to be their coach for a long time, and Jason now is. And so, Chris, here's the thing Jason's not telling you, that when I went to Graham Auto Repair and did shop visits, I would cook for all the employees
No,
cook for
don't put that in there,
everybody.
because now I'm going to have to do that. Don't.
Oh,
Why are
come
we doing
on.
this?
Jason did not. So
He had me eating
anyway,
granola bars.
I know. So
Hey, Chris, we went to go get the
There's that.
tacos together. Okay, so that I had a hand in that. I followed
Yeah.
you there.
Fair enough.
So you got tacos. When I'm there, it's meatball Parmesan subs and all kinds of things, potato soup and bread bowls, all kinds of. Yes,
All right, we know
we've had
Jason's
some
got to
good
step his
times.
game up.
Jason's got to step his game up.
I will.
All right, I'm going to
time.
use a pretend. I'm going to use a pretend radio voice today.
Oh,
I could
man.
see. I think. How long do you think I could stay in that character? About 30 seconds.
I think less.
30, less than 30.
Right. Oh, man.
Well, Jason, why don't you kick us off
Yeah, let's
and
do
tell
it.
us a little bit about
Right. So
everything
I thi-
going on with Chris, all the wonderfulness.
So, Chris, I've been coaching you for about a year almost now, right?
Yeah, I think we just crossed over a year.
Right. So,
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Of course.
Happy
And
anniversary.
it's been
You
it's been a
too.
wonderful time. I've actually learned a lot, and I know Chris has made a huge impact on the organization. So, Chris, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? How did you get to Graham Auto Repair? What happened before?
I was at my first job. I was kind of struggling a little bit. I worked at a car wash, and it was raining. I would, every time it rained, we'd shut down. I couldn't pay my bills, so I wound up getting an opportunity as a company that was emerging in the automotive industry, moved to Northern California, called CarMax.
Oh,
And I applied as a detailer because I was working at a car wash, so that would be kind of a natural transition. But actually got hired on to an inventory support role there, and just thought I was going for a job, and that was 23 years ago, and doing
Wow.
that, and 24 years ago, and I ended up working my way up through CarMax, having a lot of opportunities, a lot of barriers that were kind of removed for me as the company grew, as their leadership path grew, and they evolved how they did things, and ended up having a manager that really focused on empowering me as an associate and helped me realize and unlock my potential. So that kind of led me down a path to multiple positions there and leadership roles. And I think one of the coolest things about that is I worked my way from a detailer to running paint and body teams to fixing paint and body teams to being thrown into service centers and everything else. There was a lot of trial by fire, but finding out the positives and the negatives of the leaders that you come across along there and how you can use that to shape and evolve yourself and make you a better person, a better leader, and just a better associate across the board. So I wound up being at CarMax for about 22 years.
wow.
And worked my way up into mid-level leadership. I was working a lot of senior level stuff as stretch roles. But ultimately, as we moved up to Washington, I did not, my goal was not to stay with CarMax in this region, but my wife changed her goal to stay in this area. So, as that went on, I ended up, leaving CarMax and kind of trying to figure out what was next for me. I had it in my head that I did not want to stay in automotive. Automotive can be a very, very rough industry to work in.
You don't say.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
You're talking
And so,
crazy.
yeah, I looked at other things, along the way with CarMax. I got degrees in other things that were not automotive related, but I kept finding myself coming back to my passion with automotive and the people that I work with in the automotive industry. And I just kind of stayed there. So I applied for Graham Auto Repair. I got a call pretty quick after I applied, and got to talking with Troy and with Amber, the HR representative for the company, and they're really, really great people, and we were able to have some real good conversation during the interview. It wasn't that corporate feel, and that drew me in. So I took a
Right.
chance. I went ahead and accepted a position with them, and uh, you know, I the path has been very well cleared for me to be able to try to grow myself, grow the people around me. And for me, that's what drives me as a leader. If I didn't get the chance to do that, I'm not interested usually. And here, all the barriers were removed for me to just let me continue to try to grow myself and see how I can grow people. So,
Well, let me give a little bit of a background on the barriers being removed. You're putting that very lightly.
yeah.
So when Chris came into the picture, so Troy had just, I mean, he has two locations, right? So Graham Auto Repair, there's one in Graham, Washington. There's a second one in Yelm, Washington. So before Chris had got on, about 6 months prior to that, there was a lot of stuff falling apart at Graham from the management side of things. So the main location, the manager was let go because there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things not being followed, processes being dropped, all kinds of stuff. The second location, the manager was also not performing to the level that they should have been. So Troy had to get back from being more of an absentee owner back into the role of things to try to fix everything, get everything back to how it should be. So we didn't have a store manager at one location. The second location store manager was struggling as well. Right. So
Yeah.
then Chris comes into the picture, and the barriers being cleared is as simple as pretty much there was nobody there, right? So we had to rebuild everything. So Chris gets
Yeah.
into the picture, just thrown straight into the fire, and takes over. I mean, and this is where it really came into play, and this is what I mean. Troy was all for it as well. This is what we were looking for: someone that had the drive and the passion. One of the things that Chris said during his interview process was he wanted more of a work-life balance. He wanted to not have to spend a lot of time and be more in that managerial role. And then he gets to Graham, and like Chris just mentioned, he wants that. You want that fire. You want that
Yeah.
challenge, and whenever challenge comes in, time kind of goes out the window because you really want to conquer the challenge. So I think this is where you really shine is your background with working yourself all the way up through CarMax and the leadership roles that you had and the leadership that you were exposed to has really shaped the way that you have came in 1 year. I mean, in 1 year, Graham has completely done a 180. I mean, we are in a spot now where we had to let go of the other manager at Yelm. There was a period of time where Chris was the store manager for both, the general manager for the whole organization, and rebuilding everything at the same time. So I don't want you to short yourself on all of the changes that you've brought upon the organization. So it's been wonderful to watch from my end here as well.
Well, we need like 10 podcasts right now because I'm jotting notes as we're going through, and I know we won't get to all of these things, but one, you said the dreaded bad word inventory. I'd love to just spend an episode on inventory. That is something that I think is the bane of most shop owners' existence, and we won't even talk about the things that are in there since 1952 that their grandfather put in the storage because maybe one time somebody might come in with a 72 Volkswagen bus and need a window regulator or something that we have. But you mentioned rough industry, and I just want to touch on that for a moment. And there's a perception about the automotive industry. And we joke about it because we're in it, and it is unlike anything else. It's the only industry in the world where you could perform a service or do diagnostic and testing, and people don't want to pay for it. Things that are accepted at a doctor's office, we're giving you 50 tests, so you're going to pay for them, and then we don't know what's wrong. That's acceptable, but for some reason, to the rest of the world, a technician trying to diagnose or figure out your vehicle is not. And so we have so much work still left to do. on that, right? And even your perception of, gosh, do I get out of this? It's a rough industry. And I just love that people like you are here and passionate about it and raising the bar and really developing people, because this industry is about people above all else. It doesn't matter the skill. There's so much technology and tools and other things today that helps compensate for skill levels. Not all of it, but some. There's something that levels some of the playing ground, but that people and the investment in people and finding someone and looking and finding that diamond in the rough, or saying this person could really excel in this area. I just love that. And I love that CarMax was able to do that for you, and that you were lucky enough to have mentors along the way that saw that. So I have so many other, I won't even get started on my other list. We need 10 podcasts with you, but I'm so excited about the developing the people,
Right.
the just it, because people have a lot of talents, and many times we write them off too soon, and we don't really give them the resources and the mentoring that they need, and we kind of blame them. So my hat's off to you, Chris, for all of that. So
Right.
thank
And I do
you.
want to dig into one thing in specific, right? This is where whenever you bring someone into your organization at the level that Chris came in at, right? With his experience, it's a shock to the organization, first of all, because the organization has been operating in such a way for a period of time that when a person comes in with that kind of a background, the dynamic changes, right? So, like I mentioned before, at the second location, the manager was still there, right? So it was a shock, right? We were trying to implement all these processes back in place because a lot of the processes were already there. They just were not being followed. So, Chris, my question to you is, what were some of the, I'll say, red flags when you first joined in that you saw right off the bat from, from your previous experience to coming into the independent side?
I think coming in, some of the things for me is, one of the big things about success is maintaining what we're supposed to be doing, right? SOPs and just operating with integrity. And one of the things that drew me into Graham is we're very much fueled by an integrity-driven thing. And, we want to help customers. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and we're doing that. And we had some gaps. And, that was in the core values. That was the mission of the company. Like, if anything else, Troy wanted to make sure that this company was operating with integrity and changing the vision of the industry and how we do things. And that wasn't happening at the time. And it was pretty clear that there was a lot of comfort in what they were doing and kind of, just doing what they wanted. But we had those people in the organization that were okay with saying, hey, this isn't right. This isn't what we should be doing. But those people were having their power taken away, their voices being taken away. And so the first thing I wanted to do was focus on giving them their voice, and making sure that the people that were living the mission statement and the values of the company were, the ones that had the voice in the company. And so I started looking for ways to bring that empowerment back to the team, because people are not going to stay with a team. You're not going to get longevity out of people if you're saying one thing and you're doing another. So just really start working on making the changes, making the vision come back to life that the team wanted. And we've got associates at both stores that felt that way, and they wanted to do it. They just weren't being heard. So it's looking for ways to do that. And we started changing, re-implementing policies, re-implementing changes, but also looking for changes that we can bring to the table that were brought by the teams, and making their vision come to life so that everybody was bought into continuing to go down that road that Graham was intended to. So
You know
it was
what's
pretty
really
cool.
interesting? Accountability is empowering people. I hear so many people, regardless of what industry, of, oh, they have an SOP now, they have a this, they have a that. They're trying to make us robots. They're trying to take away our personality. They're trying to, and it's the absolute exact opposite, because when you
Mm-hmm.
have SOPs and you have guardrails in a business or situation, then people are empowered and free to roam about and do what they think they need to do to get the job done, providing they stay in those parameters. And so it removes a lot of the problems with decision making and other things because you have a framework to work within. And the more SOPs and the more accountability you have, the more people are empowered. And people do not, A players do not want to work. Jason and I were just speaking about this the other day. A players do not want to work with C players, D players, people that don't want to be there. You
Yeah.
ruin your whole culture. And when everybody's running amok, Jason loves all my
Start
sayings. When
running
they're running
amok.
amok and
Yeah.
doing things not in the framework, it makes it bad for everyone. And one of the things we do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of culture ID engagement surveys a year for our members. And almost always the one of the number one things that every business gets a dinged on or a bad mark or a lower grade is the accountability, that they don't hold people accountable enough. People want that. They tell you that when you're raising with anything, you need structure. And within that structure, you're empowered to do anything that you can do. Anything's possible.
Oh
Right.
yeah, and I think coming in not having the independent shop, right? I don't have that background, so when we're looking at SOPs, when we're looking at policies, I'm relying on my experts around me. The tech that's been working there for 3 years is going to have a better idea with his peers on what the diagnostic process should look like. So when you get the team in to build those SOPs, they invited accountability because it was their own idea. If you tell me this is what you want to do, and I say, hey, let's do it that way, and then you don't do it, you have nobody to blame but yourself. So it gets people excited. They're creating the change, they're driving it, and then at the same time, if it doesn't work out, you're developing, the team as a whole because they're all coming up with their ideas and doing it. But that accountability piece is welcome so much more when it's their own idea. You can't say this is what I want and then not do it.
So this is where a lot of times things don't necessarily work out because there's people at the very, very top, whether it's the owner, whether it's another leader in the organization, does not share that same vision, right? And this is where I think the stars aligned because Troy was also in that
Yep.
same boat. Troy
Yep.
gave you the freedom to be able to do that because he also stood behind exactly what you were trying to accomplish. Now, I know
Yeah.
we don't really get into numbers too much on our podcast, but this is where I think it's very important what we are talking about, and I want it to really resonate with people. When Chris came into the picture, and Troy was very clear about this, the same way we talk about this in sports teams. This is our rebuild time, right? We're rebuilding the team, we're rebuilding the organization. We're not as focused on getting those numbers, the targets that we are always setting. We're focusing on the team, the organization, right? So this whole process has been only a little bit over a year. And I'll share some numbers here. The average sales have almost doubled in one of the locations. And the other location is going back to where it was when all of the processes were being followed, obviously with some organic growth, right? So, and this is not with adding a whole bunch of staff either. It's getting the staffing model back to normal where it should have been. But also, I mean, the staffing was there before, and these metrics were not being hit. So within the course of a year of just focusing on rebuilding the organization, re-implementing the processes, and getting the right people in place, make sure everybody's being held accountable, the numbers quickly followed. So, and I know, Chris, you were very, very big on this as well. The numbers are important, of course. We can't be in business if we're not looking at the numbers. But let's focus on the team first, right? So one thing I do want to lead into with this is, with your background and how you've been able to kind of turn the organization around and empowering the people in there, what are some things that you saw as barriers while you were trying to implement this vision?
As I was working with like kind of the power of the leaders and stuff like that, trying to get them bought into the new process, and it can be tough because when you get stuck down a rabbit hole, it's very easy to stick with what you know, but
Right.
it's hard to see that what you know isn't working and doing that. So, I was lucky enough to get through some of those pretty quick and get the leaders bought into like what I was trying to do. And that was a big thing. Also staffing, sometimes unfortunately it means making changes in staffing, and things get a lot harder when that happens. And you're very quick to want to hire somebody else, but taking the time to make sure you get the right person for your team and you plug the right people in and everybody's complimentary, it's hard. It's tough. We went several months with one advisor where we easily should have had two. And, it was tough for that advisor. And he showed up every day. He worked extremely hard. And so he was able to keep us going. We also, for a period of time, ended up down 3 techs out of 6 on the shop. And that was hard. But the techs stepped up. They worked harder because they were bought into what we were doing. But it's hard for a lot of people to see the end through the chaos and the results. But now we're getting to a point where everybody is feeling all those weights lift off. Everything's easier. The team's working well together. And we've got the right people in the right places. But it's really, really hard to see through that process, the end. And it gets hard as a leader, too. At one period of time, I was driving to both shops every day and working, 12 hours a day. But here we are now. I'm in a completely different spot. And, so when your team sees you doing that, it helps them know that, they're not the only ones. So it's pretty cool.
But everything that you're saying, you have to believe in the mission, right? And the vision. And I think that's where most businesses fail. They don't believe in it enough to take that next step and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And they kind of give in and fold sooner. And we've all seen all the memes and pictures about like the bamboo that, doesn't grow for 5 years and shoots up, or the glacier that, all of those things. I mean, there's so many analogies with that, but you have to keep taking that next step, and you have to have conviction that this is where you're going and be all together on it. Because when you waffle, your team sees you waffling. There isn't any room for that. It is, here's how we're going to market, or this is how we're moving forward. There's going to be some bumps and bruises on the way. Can we chat about, I got a pet peeve for a moment on SOPs and a lot of times when we're working with our members, and anyone I know in a small business or independent business, and I talk to them when they ask what I do, or my friends know what I do, and I say, "Oh, do you have a process for this, or how are you working on a 2-year, 5-year plan?" And all of those things, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm just a small mom and pop, whatever. I only have 5 employees. I only have 10 employees. It's one building. We all just communicate." And for some reason in the independent world, there's such a resistance to having SOPs and policies because they don't want to be corporate-y. They're not corporate. That's why they didn't do a franchise. And every single business needs SOPs. Every business needs a playbook. Every business needs strategic planning. I don't care how big your building is, how small your building is. If you only have 2 people, you need all of that. How has that transition been? Like, you come from very corporate, everybody just normally follows it. You jump in the independent world and they're like, "Oh no, we don't need that. We're not a corporation."
So a lot of things were implied or undocumented SOPs and stuff like that. And it's tough because, when I think about cooking, when I think about an SOP, like, do you follow a recipe? Like, if you want the result, you got to follow a recipe. You got to have it in writing, and you do it same every time, because if it starts struggling, it's not working, you look at that recipe and you figure out what changes you need to make, and then you follow that one the next time. So we've been making sure that we're creating those SOPs, and we're making sure that the recipe for our success is right there in writing. And it's a tough one. It is, because a lot of people don't want that. Same thing with policies. But you can't have an expectation of your people. You can't have an expectation of a consistent outcome if you don't have a roadmap to how you're doing it. So that's one thing that we've been highly focused on doing is making sure we have SOPs. And we did have, quite a few SOPs that were in writing as well, but they were outdated. Nobody's looked at the recipe and said, "Hey, this is not working anymore. We have different ingredients now." And so, as we're changing that and we're going through that, it has helped bring that consistency that we're starting to see. Because when you achieve that consistency and things start not working, you also look at, are we still following it? And if things aren't clear there in writing, so the team has actually really, really enjoyed having those expectations right there in writing. And at the end of the day, it's like accountability. That's what they want. That's what they're asking for. Not everybody has been at this shop a long time. The new person coming in, if they have this roadmap to follow, should be able to perform the same diagnostic process, the same DBI process, or the same customer check-in process as the person that's been here for 2, 3 years. And that's what helps us achieve consistency so we can work on growth that's not chaotic.
My recipes are usually easy. It's like 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Make sure you peel the corner, or just hit a couple buttons, and my recipe is good to go.
Yeah, that frozen meal.
Right.
So, Chris, why don't we take a little bit of a turn on this? And what are some of the things that you like in the independent world versus the corporation?
I mean, the first and foremost, the politics aren't there. Like, you don't have to be friends with somebody. Like, you can come, you can focus on doing business, and you can work on uplifting people and not worry about who are you friends with and that. Because that, the more you go up into the corporate world, the more it becomes a social game. And it doesn't need to be a social game. You can just focus on growth and execution. I love that. I love the fact that I have direct access to the person that I work for, and that they truly believe in empowerment. Working in a corporate world, you got to go through a lot of different channels to try to make small changes. Where I truly am empowered as a leader, and that may be independent world, that may be just Troy, but it is something that has absolutely kept me and locked me into the vision, the growth, and just the direction that I want to help realize for the company. And doing that, I love the fact that you can be more personable with people, and that you can do some great things. You can. One of the big ones in corporate, as you grow, you can't really have friends at work. You can't have people that you build like a social, relationship with, but you're at work 50, 60 hours a week. So, you don't feel so isolated, being able to cultivate caring relationships for people. And that doesn't mean, I'm going out for beers with the person that works below me, but we can have genuine conversations and genuine connections as a company, and you don't have to think about what's going to happen tomorrow. And so, the personal piece is there. And 22 years in corporate, it was missing for a long time. So for me, that's just a definite relief in being able to be happy where I go every day and focus on what matters and not think about the things that don't.
When I speak to people that own franchises, franchisees, that's one of the things that they love, is that they have the structure of corporations and, the playbook and all of the branding and the backing, but then they have the autonomy to do things within the framework on themselves and run it like an independent shop. And so I think it's so interesting, all the different ways to look at it and the options out there for everybody of whatever you're looking for.
Chris, what you were talking about, like you felt empowered as a leader, right? And this is something that a lot of independent organizations struggle with. They will empower individuals to get to a certain position, whether it's a service manager, a store manager, any kind of leadership role, even if it's a shop foreman, but they don't give them the authority to do anything with that empowerment, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, like, hey, you're the store manager. You could do whatever you want. Just make sure you check in with me first. Am I really the store manager if I'm checking in with you every time? So, Can you, and you being the general manager at this point, what are you doing to make sure when you are empowering your people, you're also giving them authority?
I think the biggest thing is making sure that I am allowing them to make decisions. There's a period of time where sometimes I struggle a little bit with transition. I think Jason knows this very well. And a lot of the times, what I try to do is sit back and let decisions be made, but kind of audit and pay attention to what's going on. And I'll ask questions here and there. And that's not because I'm micromanaging, but I'm making sure that those things don't get missed. So I'm making, if I ask somebody, hey, what's going on with this, and say, oh, this is what happened, this is what's going on. Okay, cool. I know that they made a well-informed decision and this is the path that they wanted to go. But if they, that's something that they missed, it lets me know that I have to kind of work on helping them audit a little bit more or having conversations and stuff like that. But, as you do that, you back away. You have to have trust. You have to have trust in your people. Like if you're somebody that's sitting at home at night and auditing everything, you can't enjoy your life too. So you have to figure out how to let go and just trust in what instilled in your team and doing that. And, one of our locations, we've had the manager there for about 6 months now, and he's getting to a point where I'll just ask questions here and there, but sometimes, I'll go a week without really digging through his stuff because he knows his stuff very well. And I owe that to him to make sure that he can feel successful in his success. And you can't be that micromanager and have your thumb down. It doesn't work that way. Otherwise, people they don't feel empowered. You can say you're empowering them, but you're not. So,
Everybody needs that saying, trust but verify, like tattooed on them or hanging in their office of trust but verify. We can ask questions, we can check in, we can have checkpoints, but we have to empower our people and trust them, and we can't just put our head in the sand either, right? There's got to be a balance there of that. So
oh yeah, and everything that you focus on, you should be focusing on their growth, right? Teaching them, because the goal is to teach them, and you can take a week off without having to think what's happening. And you getting in that mindset, it's hard. It really is. You're running a business, but you have to take that leap but it is trust but verify is like my absolute favorite term to use because I have let go of that in the past and it bit me. So
Right.
you have to find the balance.
And one thing that we all mentioned already is the growth, right? We have to focus
Yeah.
on growth of our team. And this is something
Hmm.
that I know at Graham is being done really well. There's growth plans for every position, whether
Yep.
you are an assistant, whether you are just someone, a shop help, let's even put it that way. There's a growth plan in place. And one thing that I know, Chris, you've worked really hard on is building those backups for each position right away, right? So whether
Uh,
it's the shop foreman, I know you guys refer to them as the production managers. There's already a person that could take that role right now if it were to open up. And that's at
Absolutely.
each location, right? So there's constant development happening and it's outlined. And that's where a lot of organizations struggle, right? And
It is.
people just don't know what's next and what do I need
Yep.
to do to get to that level. Whether that's you guys do, book club internally, right? And it's not like you guys have 30 people as part of the book club. It's 6 people, right? 4 to 6 people, and you guys are touching base on whatever you're reading every week. There's weekly dashboard meetings, and you guys are making an effort to make it so that way everybody is behind the same mission, the same vision. Everybody is trying to grow and do better for themselves, which in turn helps do better for the organization.
Oh yeah, and it's really cool to see that happening because the confidence that you see in the leaders in the team behind them is really really cool to see. And we had a store. I opened up the store manager position for the ground store, and I had an advisor that had been with us for about 30 days, maybe 40, and he said, "Look, I know I just started, but where I would like to be is a manager. So would you allow me to interview for this position, knowing that I probably won't get it, just so you can give me some feedback?" And we said, absolutely. And so we went through the interview process, and he had some opportunities with his answers, mainly because he wasn't a leader with us. He didn't have those examples to speak from his previous experience or this one. But then we sat down and recapped, and I said, look, these answers you struggled with. I said, but my job as a leader for you is to help you get put into these situations over the next year so that I can coach you through them and help you be successful through these because you told me this is where you want to be. We are going to map out a process to get you there. And your answers to these questions let us know where we can focus on so we can continue to grow you and get you into this role like you want to be. I think the big thing is not discounting, hey, I'm new, I want to get here. Okay, well, you're new. Let's go 6 months and then we'll talk about it. If somebody speaks up and they say, hey, I want to do this eventually, all right, cool. Let's see where you're at. Let's start road mapping it now.
That's awesome.
Love it. Can you believe time already? Can you believe the time already?
Oh, wow. We've been at this for a minute.
Holy cow.
Wow. Well, there is
is
one
going.
other thing that I did want to touch base on, and then we can leave the viewers with some nuggets from today. And that one thing is a lot of people just, especially in the automotive repair industry, independent side, it is hard to take that leap especially when it comes to a growth standpoint, right? So there's a lot of, we'll just call them mom and pop shops that have been around forever, right? 30, 40, 50 years. And when you ask them, like, hey, did you ever want to grow, expand, and maybe make it multi-location or whatever that might be? And the answer is usually, no, I'm happy with what I've had. It's just content. It's too much headache, too much hassle. But that example of the 30-day service advisor that wants to be a manager, right? If you're growing your people, these decisions, there's nothing to be scared about, right? You're automatically priming yourself for that expansion, for that growth. So you guys are at 2 locations now, but we are building all these backups in the organization. If there was an opportunity to get a 3rd location, it makes that decision so much easier because you already have the people to fill those positions to continue to grow. And now this is not a thing for the owner of the organization. It's more for the organization as a whole. If you're able to continue to expand, continue to grow, that continues to provide opportunities for everybody within the organization. So no matter what your mission is, no matter what your vision is, that growth mindset, it helps everyone from the top down. So that's one thing that I want to make sure that anybody that's watching this, don't be scared of growth, don't be scared of expansion, and don't be scared of profit because profit is what's going to allow you to do all of that.
You almost owe it to them.
Right.
You have to unlock opportunities. You want to show opportunities. You have to be just as bought into creating opportunities for them as they are for taking them.
Well, anything else that we want to add?
I don't have anything else. I think it's just don't be afraid to bring people in that are better than you, that are smarter than you, and because all those people are going to elevate your team. In order to be a good leader, a good manager, you don't have to be the best one, the smartest one in the room. You just got to know how to leverage the best people and the smartest people in the room.
Wow, that's one way to
Love it.
That's a huge nugget right there.
Yeah.
I'm dropping the mic. I'm not even adding anything to that. That was brilliant.
It was a pleasure having you on our podcast, Chris. I'm sure that anybody that's listening to this, even if you took away one thing, I mean, there was just so much valuable information today.
There was, and I want to do like 9 more. I have a whole list. Every time I was looking down, I was making notes like need one on this, need one on that, need one on this. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and stay safe and make good choices. And we will be back in 2 weeks.
Thank you.